All right, so we are now recording. Welcome back to Game of the Month number 2, which is Final Fantasy III, as voted on by our one and only Red Mage. But today I am joined in call with... Take it away.
I guess I'll start then. Sir Lols, I do indie dev stuff, just little arty farty projects.
And I'm Red Mage. I mostly just play games, and I'm here to talk about this one.
We have a reviewer, we have a maker, and we have a player. This is going to be great.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
So, Final Fantasy III, this wasn't my first experience with this game this time around. Of course, neither was Banjo, but that's beside the point. But I've never beaten this game before this month, this month's Game of the Month. And I gotta say, it was actually... I got a lot further in it, my original playthrough on the DS, than I ever thought I did. So it was really cool to finally finish this one up on the Pixel Remaster. So I'm assuming, Red Mage, you've experienced this game through before. And Zachary, you said this was your first time playing it, right?
Yeah, this was my first time playing Final Fantasy III.
Yeah, I've played through this game a couple of times. I played through when I was younger. I did a playthrough of all of them, just to like all of the Final Fantasies up minus the MMOs up through that time, which I believe was 13. This was before 15 had come out. So played through all of them. So this is obviously one of them. And I mean, I certainly used a guide for it when I was that young. But
oh man, that is that is an investment of time for sure.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it certainly was. But you know, when you're young, you can do anything because you have all the time in the world.
Ain't that the truth?
So, but and then I picked it up again with the Pixel remasters, but it was just never my favorite. So I just ended up playing through 1 and waiting for 4, 5, and 6 to come out with the Pixel remasters, because I mean the SNES just has stronger games typically, and I believe that typically is true for Final Fantasy here. But I do really enjoy this game, and I enjoyed it this time through as well. So, because the first time I'd ever played it was on the NES original on an emulator with a fan translation.
Ooh.
on a laptop. So it was good, but it was rough in a lot of ways. Some of the spelling differences especially are interesting, and just not how I remember them. But very, very weird. And I've never actually played any of the remakes, even though I own 3 on Steam. So my perception of it comes completely from the 2 dimensions.
Okay. So that's one area where it's actually pretty interesting to me, because I didn't play this game until the DS version came out, and so that's the way I experienced it up until about 75% of the way through the game before I stopped playing it. And jumping into the Pixel remaster was actually pretty interesting, just seeing the differences there between the 3D version and the 2D version. And I don't know, like, it's hard to say which one I really preferred. I preferred the way that the story is presented in the 3D version, as the way it is, versus the 2D version. Like, the 2D version story is kind of like
It's
non-existent in
yeah.
certain ways.
It's in the manual.
Yeah, no joke.
Manuel, what's that?
I know, what's a manual in the here and now? But like, the gameplay of the 2D version I really enjoyed over the 3D version, but the character presentation and the storyline of the 3D version was really cool, and it's just very interesting to see how they really did that. And Zachary, you only did the 3D version, right? Or
That
part
is
of
correct.
the 3D version?
Yeah, I got through as much as the 3D version as I could. This kind of genre of game goes against my gears a little bit, so admittedly, I wasn't as diligent as I could have been. But
Yeah, it happens.
yeah, I've played Final Fantasies on and off, so I've been kind of like exposed to some of the side projects like Crystal Chronicles. But as far as I would call like the mainline branch, the main story. This was my first foray into the turn-based.
Okay.
Gotcha.
So not the biggest fan of the turn-based then, I'm assuming?
Yeah, turn-based, turn-based games, they don't really do it for me. They tend to boil down to micromanagement, which might be fun for some people, but for me, I'm micromanaged enough at work and at home, and I don't want to do that. That's kind of like, I had a busy day at work. I'm going to play a healer. Like, no.
Right.
Yeah.
Here, hold on 1 second.
Yeah.
All right. Anyway.
Okay.
Sorry about that interruption. Go ahead and continue.
Yeah. So it's kind of weird because there's a little difference. I do enjoy turn-based like strategy games like, chess, Advance Wars.
Mm-hmm.
But when it comes to micromanagement, like potions, different spells, different jobs, it's like, I don't like that so much. I think the exemption for chess and Advance Wars styles games is there because that's not so much micromanagement, that's being strategic. And in that sense, it's just it's an RTS that you play in turns. So getting back on subject, turn-based games, they have a hard time holding my attention. So that being said, though, I think it's pretty good. I was actually really interested in the story. I think it's very 90s, but not in a bad way. It was a simpler time. It's a simpler story, Compared to like I said, I haven't played the original, so I don't want to do a comparison to that. But as someone who's first time into the turn-based not Crystal Chronicles, I'm sorry, a little turn-based Final Fantasy, I definitely appreciate what the 3D remake did in terms of giving the characters names. Some people might not like that you don't have them at the start of the game because I do kind of agree that is kind of different from how the game was. But from a first-time player, it was kind of nice building into the characters a little bit. Like, oh, this is XYZ. I don't remember their names. I'm not even going to pretend.
I just remember that the main one was named Lunith.
Yeah, Lunith sounds right. I have the wiki here. Yeah, Arc.
There you go.
Ingus, Raffi, I can't pronounce that. I gave them unique names anyway. The only person who didn't get a custom name was Arc. Because I don't know, he was like my best friend, so it felt wrong to give him like my name. Was like, hello, best friend, your name. It's like, no, you get to keep your name.
Yeah, so touching on what you said, trying to compare it to the first Final Fantasy, I blew through Final Fantasy III Pixel Remaster really quick. I was really surprised how fast I got through it because I have a hard time with RPGs myself when it comes to turn-based games. But we decided on this one, so I went full out on it and ended up just mashing my way through it. And after it was done, I was actually in an RPG mood for the first time ever in a couple years. So I went back and started playing Final Fantasy I because I've never finished that one either. And I was just kind of laughing at how similar the games actually are. Just 3 is a very, very polished experience compared to the original. Like in the original, you choose some jobs and you were stuck with those for the whole playthrough. Whereas in 3, you can dynamically change them and stuff. But
that's good.
Like, the story beats are very similar. You go after the 4 crystals, yada yada. You get Sarah to fall in love with you and all that good stuff. Like, they're very similar games. It's just 3 is obviously immensely more polished and not a complete departure like 2 was. I like 2's systems, the way it works, unlike a lot of people, but it's cool to see like the original concept just getting polished in such a degree. And then seeing the narrative actually expand in 4 onward. Like, it's cool. I love that about going back to older entries of a long-running franchise just to see how it's evolved.
Yeah, definitely in terms of evolution, this one takes a lot of things from the previous games. Where Final Fantasy One obviously was a first entry, and it had its own things that introduced everything. It introduced was everything new, and then Final Fantasy Two just kind of was almost an entirely different game.
Yep.
Like it, barely the two was just there to make it sell almost.
NES era
but then-
sequels, man.
Exactly. But then there was this game, which I mean, it brings back the prelude, the Crystal Prelude. It brings back the main theme of Final Fantasy. It brings back so many other things that just the first game had, while also keeping some of the things that the second game had. I think some of the good things the second game had.
Yeah.
And makes them well. And the story definitely is simpler. It's very, very similar to that first game.
We gotta get the 4 crystals.
Honestly, very similar to a couple games after it as well.
I mean, they kept the crystals in 4, just expanded on the narrative.
And then 5 is the exact same, except the crystals explode this time.
Spoilers.
Four warriors of light tracing down the 4 crystals of the elements.
Yep.
Very Final Fantasy. It's this quintessential. And this game took that first one and made it a tradition instead of just a one-off.
Yeah.
And that's definitely something that it's important for.
Yeah.
And I think it does it well in a lot of ways, and frustrating in others. The job system is a beautiful, beautiful idea. The job system, in theory, is so good in this game. And it works well in a lot of ways. It gives you that customization, similar to the first game. I would say in a similar amount of flexibility to the first game, because you need a white mage. You will need a black mage or somebody to cast magic when you turn mini. You need a fighter or somebody to do just like you're definitely streamlined in, and there's not a bunch of creative ways to build your party around that in this game. And especially when you hit some of those dungeons, like that, what was it? The Garuda boss fight, where if you just weren't a dragoon and jumping every single turn, you just died.
Yeah.
Those kinds of things. Or the dungeon where you're a mystic knight, you're a dark knight, and you have to be a dark knight. And if you're not a dark knight, then the enemies just duplicate. And it's why? They don't have any other unique features. Why did you give them their only unique feature, making it so that this dungeon is not otherwise But
yeah, that was definitely obnoxious. I'm not gonna lie, I kind of just brute forced my way through that. Like I didn't change to Dark Knight, and I'm like, dang, these guys keep multiplying. This is rough. Like, all right, we're gonna use magic to try to just blow through a couple of these guys, and just so I ended up brute forcing that. Like, I think my party makeup was white mage, black mage. Then I had like your knight, and then I did my other guy alternated between red mage and dragoon.
Yeah, that's how I feel it ends up. You have
and
a
then,
black mage,
like,
a white mage.
I think my biggest problem with the job system was just how long it takes to unlock some of them, because you go and you switch to the new job and you're at such a disadvantage for such a long time until you get it leveled back up. And that's the one grindy part of this game that I'm not personally a fan of. Like, if people like grinding, that's awesome. I'm not a fan of grind.
Yeah. And as someone that doesn't really play these kind of games, I couldn't figure out the job system. I didn't even know I had it until like I was forced to do it for the shrink. I was like, so how do I shrink myself? And it's like, so first you get a mage. It's like, oh. So, granted, that could be me more than the game, because like I said, I don't really play these, but like it's very confusing because there's so many jobs, and it's like a rock, paper, scissors, Spock, lizard. It's like everything's canceling each other out. It's just finding the perfect meta was just such a pain in the butt for me. And like I said, I didn't even try. I just, okay, you two cast magic, you steal stuff, you stab stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
That's
just like, if that doesn't work, I'm just, I'm just gonna have to make it work somehow.
Yeah.
What I was upset about was that we didn't get Thief from the Wind Crystal at the beginning of the game, and you had to wait to the Fire Crystal, all the way to the Fire Crystal to get the Thief, which granted was not very far into the game. It was just like a couple hours, but
It's
like
the second crystal, right? If I'm remembering right.
Yeah, you got Thief.
Wasn't that one of the first jobs? Because I got a Thief, but I didn't.
If you're in the remake, I think Thief was one of the first jobs.
I think you get Thief in the beginning of 3D
remake.
Which
which is interesting, and I think Pixel Remaster they actually changed it back to the original where you don't get it till Fire Crystal, if I remember.
And in Pixel Remaster, you also start as Onion Knights versus like the Squire of the 3D remake. Like you don't get Onion Knight until weird. I don't even know if you get Onion Knight in 3D remake. No, you have to.
But yeah, that's weird. Onion Knight's like maybe they make it like a legendary thing, like they did with Lulu's ultimate weapon in Final Fantasy X. Is Onion Knight?
I honestly
just the little dolls.
Don't recall.
That's right. That was that's something that was one of my first things because Final Fantasy X was one of the first games I ever played. She has an Onion Knight as her ultimate weapon, so when you're an Onion Knight, so I was like, oh shit. Sorry.
Oh man, the Onion Knights. Sorry. I do love that about this game is like you start with the Onion Knight class in the Pixel Remaster in the original, and it's like not a great class, but once you max it out and you get to the last dungeon, you get all the Onion Knight stuff if you're willing to grind the dragons, and you just become like the ultimate bad A.
Yeah, yeah, it's pretty cool.
Gosh, like putting in the time and effort for that, like, and not getting that payoff until the last dungeon, it's like. It's kind of like sadistic on the developers that made this game.
That's the 80s 90s mentality of more 80s. I think this game was released in the early 90, so makes sense. NES era, just absolutely brutal.
So I mean, I guess you at least could go and like do all the optional like side summons, like go and take on Odin and all those.
Oh, getting the ninja and the sage, I think, is almost required if you don't do the Onion Knight grind.
Yep,
for sure. Like you just can't beat the game if you don't have those two. With that final boss, that final dungeon, the whole game, I could deal with the grind. I'll be honest. I also play the NES fan translation. I do makes it so that it change. Didn't play. I'm gonna be honest with you guys. A vanilla version. I think it changes so you don't need the job points or whatever it is to change classes. You can just super freely change them. And it just takes a lot of the punishment out of not playing classes, so that when you have to change to like Dragoon for a single boss fight or change to Dark Knights for a single dungeon, it doesn't matter.
Yep.
Which it's cheating. A little bit when you're talking about the aspects of a game, but I've played it before, and trust me when I say I know those parts do suck, and that's why I skipped them this time.
Yeah, I think my only real complaint about the game, like I think the difficulty level was pretty good, like it was challenging, but it wasn't Phantasy Star 2.
Yeah, it was not extremely hard, not extremely easy, but then that.
But it just got annoying how often it relied on doing mini or frog or just putting you at this real disadvantage. Because it's like you're in a dungeon, you have to be mini to go through it. And it's like, okay, so that means all my physical attackers are now worthless. So it's like I should have just been all mages and been 100% better off throughout the whole game.
I ran away a lot when I was mini the first time. I was like, nope.
I went through with a couple of red mages at the start of the game, and since you can freely change, I just went through, I think it was 3 red mages and a fighter, or I swapped the other guy out a lot, but whatever I needed at the time.
Yeah.
Just tearing through. Amazing.
Yeah, that would have been the way to go.
I chose. Yeah, I know. My name is my name for a reason.
Find that kind of annoying that to play the game right, you would have had to play it before, though. Because like you would have only come across that strategy after having played it, and it's like, oh, I should do this.
Yeah, pretty much. But I mean, you can dynamically change on the spot, so
It's better than Final Fantasy I, where it's like if you get to the end game, you realize the red mage doesn't really do much anymore, and you're just stuck with them.
Yep.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's one of the cool things about it, though, is that
Not
there
that
are so many classes, and you unlock more as you progress through the game, that you can really adjust to different strategies, as long as you don't choose the Scholar, because they're balls worthless, you know?
Yeah, just like the Bard. The Bard can get out of my party.
Pretty much. But
That's all.
I don't know. I think this is actually like a pretty good starter RPG for people that might want to get into the genre personally, just because while it is a little tough, like when you don't understand the beginning, like it can be tough, but at the same time, like it can get extremely easy just by over leveling just a tad, getting your job classes up just a tad.
Mm-hmm.
So it,
there were
it
certain
kind of levels it
spots.
out. And as you progress, it gets harder again. So, like, I just feel like it's a good starter RPG. Like, I remember getting brutalized by Phantasy Star 2 back in the day. Like,
it's not handholdy, but it's
Considering
it's
I
good.
didn't get very far, I do have to agree that it was slightly fair because you know you're going the wrong way when you start facing monsters that are just demolishing your party. And so like I had that, and it's like, oh, okay, I'll just go somewhere else. Like when everyone's ghosts in the first town where you get what's her name, and I just went straight into the mine and I got destroyed. And I was like, oh, I guess don't do that. And I'm actually okay with that. Like I don't mind a game that's hard as long as it's fair, you know?
Yeah.
So like, even if you like, oh, like that was the lesson. Don't go this way. And I had the same thing when you get the boat from the Vikings. It's like, okay, I see a boat, I'll get on it, and then dead. I think that dragon wiped me out like first time, and I think it was supposed to. So I kind of like games that make more fun ways of guiding you instead of like invisible walls or kill timers. Like, no, you go this way, you'll just face monsters you can't defeat.
Yeah,
you know,
pretty
like,
much.
Go as long. Yeah, it's like, you know, it's not stopping you. You're just gonna die.
Oh man, can we talk about how you get like 4 different boats / airships in this game?
The airships in this game. I love how you get one in the first 20 seconds.
Yeah, you get a canoe, you get an airship, you get a boat, like a pirate ship.
But then you convert it into an airship.
I was gonna say you didn't know this, but you convert that into an airship. That's later.
So that's where you get your second airship then, because I did get the first airship.
Yeah.
The first airship.
You get the first airship into
minutes.
the rock to get to the pirate ship.
Yeah.
And then you go and save the one dude's kingdom, and he converts it into an airship, and then it gets blown up by some other dude.
Yep.
And then you get the speed airship, and then you finally get the final warship.
And then that ship, you can go over mountains.
Whoa.
Yeah, exactly. It goes like
I was cracking
every single
up though. I'm like, oh dang, you get the airship super early in this game. Oh, it's dead. Oh, we have a boat.
That's my thinking too. I was like, I got this airship super early. There's got to be a catch.
Oh, that boat. Yeah, that boat though. Then they get it in their airship and they're like, okay, we can only land this on water, but we are going over the edge right now. Is this actually a floating continent? Boom, it is. Second overworld.
Dang.
I had no idea where I was going. I had no idea where I was going. I like how I said idea, but anyway, I had no idea where I'm going, and I just happened to fly over that kingdom that triggers the cutscene where you get shot down. And I was like, well, crap, I don't have an airship again.
Yep, and then you have to deal with all that. And that's a civil war. That's a interesting civil war too. I like that.
Yes, it was. That's one of the
beat.
better story points of the game for sure.
I think that's one of, because he's like a crazed king and making his own soldiers fight against each other.
Yeah,
and then he goes to kill
like
the prince.
No,
war. Well,
they were trying to kill each other.
Oh, that sucks.
Yeah, just a tad.
I mean, for his sport, to kill each other.
Yeah.
But then he was being controlled by one of the demons and breaks the spell and kills himself, and you kill the
yeah.
You know, Final Fantasy things. And then later there's fairies and a forest and you're
the floating tree.
And then right, the floating tree that sends everyone home, and then you go back to see the king. That's earlier in the story,
yeah,
actually.
that's back on the floating island.
That's back on the floating island. But and then you get the other ship that goes into under the water. Well, you have to get it to restore it under the water first,
Yep.
and then you can go under the water. And that's the third overworld, is under the water overworld.
Yeah, lots of stuff.
I like when you first go down there though, because it's like so ominous. Yeah, I guess you just got shot down right away. But no, when you first go down there, the Water Crystal Temple, and then there's the shipwreck.
Yep.
And then you get shut down, and then you, oh gosh, I'm trying to remember the exact the beats of that story. It's so crazy at that point.
Yeah.
But that's the mid game.
Yep.
You know, and
So
then
it's
you get
about there that I stopped playing on the DS version, like shortly after that. And once you get to that point, like you can get to the end pretty quickly, and I just didn't even ever realize it.
And there's a bunch of, you could get almost all of the side quests by then. It's like solidly mid game.
Oh yeah.
And then there's the she gets shot. She takes an arrow for you.
Yep.
That's crazy. And then and that's when you get Dragoon.
Yep.
On that crystal, water crystal, I think. Oh yeah. Dragoon's such a good Final Fantasy Tactics, baby. That's what it makes me think of. And Final Fantasy IV, of course. Both of those games.
Yeah, Dark Knight and Dragoon classes were cemented into me from Final Fantasy IV.
Oh yeah. I mean, how could they not be? Truly.
Good old Cecil. But that is a different game for a different month.
Yeah. That'd be oof. You could get that finished in a month. I think it's once you pass, well, I think we could probably finish 4 or 5 in a month. 6 would be pushing it, maybe.
Oh gosh. We need to make 6 my game of the month just so I actually finish 6.
Yeah. Give yourselves 2 months just so you can make sure we finish it. There you go.
Yep, there we go.
But then anything past that, you're just, any of the PS1 era past, you're just not finishing that in a month.
Not without some dedication.
True. Unless it's a full-time job, I guess.
Yeah.
Right. But I like the subversion. I mean, you don't really, I don't know. I guess I didn't really believe even the first time I played it that the Earth Crystal was completely shattered and gone or whatever. But the subversion, that's the like gold crystal, and then he shatters it. Interesting time.
And then you find it in his dungeon.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like it. I really like the way they did the story for this game, even if it wasn't the most
it's
like immersive for the Pixel remaster, at least.
Sure.
Play the 3D remake, you get a lot more story beats.
Right, and I think it ends up really well though, because like it's written well.
Yeah,
it's a well written story still.
And we got to appreciate the fact that the translation doesn't suck.
Right. Even honestly on the fan translation that I played, it's not perfect, but it's much better than some of the other even official games, like some of the errors that came through in some later games.
Final Fantasy IV's original English translation for the SNES.
Oof. Even 6's.
Yeah. So, for anyone not familiar with Final Fantasy's release history, here in the States, we didn't get the real Final Fantasy 2 and 3. So our Final Fantasy 2 was Final Fantasy 4, and our Final Fantasy 3 was Final Fantasy 6. So we missed out on 5 as well.
Kind of situation.
And then we got 7.
Yeah, so we went from 3 to 7, number-wise, because they were just like, okay, we're going to bring it over with the real numbering.
2005? Yeah. So this was released in 1990, so it was 15 years later that you got the DS remake here in the States.
Yep.
In 2005, and yeah, very good game. Eventually, that came to
Steam
iOS,
and
then Steam and PC, and
PSP as well.
PSP. That's what I was forgetting. Thank you.
Yeah.
I knew it went to something else.
Yep.
PSP, then to iOS, then to Steam.
Yep.
Then I go from there. That's it. That's the 3D, and then the Pixel remaster, of course.
Yeah, I'm hoping they release the Pixel remaster on Switch and other consoles soon, because that'd be a great way for people to experience it. But
kind of surprised
the
that,
PC.
You know what? I'm happy to be getting my Steam Deck soon. Now that I can't, like, just for some.
That's how I played through it.
Yeah, I can imagine that was very fun.
It was very nice.
I'm in Q3. Q3 ends at the end of next month, so
Oh, good.
month and a half. I'll be getting it sometime in the next month and a half.
Very nice. Yeah, it's
But,
the pixel
excited.
remaster games are perfect use for the Steam Deck. Honestly,
Exactly what I'm
sleep
thinking.
mode, pick up, play. It worked really
Exactly. First, that's Final Dungeon too. If you were playing on a emulator for the original version, doing save states, because that Final Dungeon,
well.
I just have to keep complaining about it.
It's funny because I didn't feel like it was that bad. I think
If you were leveled out properly, but I was going through pretty fast in the game, and I hit a block with that. I was not leveled enough. I was having a good but challenging time, and then it went, no, level up, because you face what's guy's name, Zand?
yeah,
Right.
I think so.
You face Zand, and he just opens up with Meteo, and you're like, okay, well, I've got to have more than that amount of health because I can't do anything. And then he's not even the final boss.
No, he's not. It was a trick.
They started that with this game. Surprise. Well, I mean, that's kind of what the Final Fantasy I did too, right?
I honestly don't know. I never made it that far in one.
Yeah. So I feel like Red Mage could talk about little like sidewinding details forever. So I guess
interrupt me.
How
Stop
would we?
me, please.
Yeah. How would we compare this to? How would you compare this to other turn-based strategy games? Because, like I said, I don't have a lot of experience with this. So, like, how would you rate it to something else that's not Final Fantasy?
Early.
I guess I'd just say that it's a good starter RPG again. Like, the Pixel Remaster makes it very easy to get into an RPG that isn't going to be overbearingly hard, but also at the same time not too easy. Like, you're going to have to strategize, you're going to have to prepare.
Yeah, you'll kind of have to learn how to play it, but it's a little forgiving.
But it's not hard to learn. That's the thing. Like, it's not a hard game to learn. Like, I'm trying to get into Monster Hunter right now, and that's a hard game to learn.
Yeah.
So
yeah, exactly.
So it's like, it's just that, in my mind, it's a perfect entry-level RPG, like, right after Pokemon. Like, you go and you start a Pokemon game. Those are, like, your gateway RPGs. Like, they're super simple, they're super easy. And then it's like, you want to do a traditional RPG after Pokemon. Final Fantasy. Okay. Like, Final Fantasy III is that perfect starting point. Like, it's not overly complicated, like once you start getting into the 3D entries can be, but it's not overbearingly hard like other 2D RPGs of the era, like Phantasy Star 2. I'm gonna keep bringing that one up. I love that game to death, but man, it is unforgiving.
Yeah, and the 3D remake, like I said, is on adding to what you said, it's a good entry point for someone that might want to get into it, because it's the spirit of the 2D Final Fantasy 3, but it's got a little bit more story beats, maybe visually a little bit more appealing. It's a little quicker to play through. It sounds like you can get through it in 12 hours, 10 hours, about.
My Pixel Remaster playthrough was about 16, so not terrible.
Yeah,
I was
so
gonna say somewhere more like 20-ish, 15, 20.
Yeah, so it's definitely it's definitely the furthest RPG I've gone into, because others I just tutorial, cool, never playing this again. But this one I actually got a little bit further into, and if I had a little bit more time, I could easily see myself beating it, and I plan to beat it at some point in the future, because I am hooked on some level. I want to see where it goes. So yeah, it's definitely a good entry point. I can't really compare it to another RPG, because like I said, I don't have one to compare it to, but it was definitely a fun stepping stone. Definitely a good learning experience. I kind of felt myself picking it up, and while I'm still not a big turn-based guy, I can kind of apply a little bit of strategy to it. It's like optimizing the party, learn to optimize the party better. I still don't like the jobs too much, but that Wikipedia can help me with that. You'd
probably get a better kick out of 4, to be honest.
Really?
Yeah, the ones that,
Because 4 doesn't have a job system. Like, your characters are who they are.
Okay, I'll check out 4 then.
It's not as complicated as later entries. Too.
Yeah, like
Still,
4 to this day remains my favorite 2D entry. Like 6 is honestly going to overtake it when I finally finish it probably, but
yeah,
like 4 has all my nostalgia, all my memories, and like I just love 4 to death. And it actually has like a more in-depth story. Like that's where the storytelling aspect really got the focus. Like, 4's so good.
Yeah, it's like early Dragon Quest games, which makes sense considering that they ended up buying Enix.
Yep, pretty much.
Right? So, makes sense. They're very similar companies. It made sense that they became the same, I think. Turn-based, you get to, the only difference is the battle view, really. Instead of seeing the monster's head on, you see him with your party on the side.
Yep.
And I think it's interesting that you don't see the guest party member, except in the like pause menu with that cute little, or when they're walking behind you. But like, I'm looking for their sprite in the battle menu. I feel like I'm missing it.
Yeah.
But I like Desh, who is just a little too tall to fit in the menu, so they had him just do this like squat pose or something.
Yeah.
Which is super funny because we're always in mini with him anyway.
Yeah, it's true. He was
and
one
then
of the more interesting story aspects as well, but
I liked him. And then he like with his memory loss, and then he came back with when he was like, "Oh, I'm a guardian," and then he was like, "I don't want to be a guardian. I'm gonna go be with that girl again at the end of the game." He's on the anime to guard it.
Responsibilities, let's go.
I mean, I guess he was probably on the break with her again, like beforehand, right?
He was in the
so I guess that might be a good transition point into the characters, like this game versus other Final Fantasy games or just games in general, maybe story beats. So I found them to be kind of bland. Maybe that's just the like I said, the simple writing. Like it's kind of a 90s writing theme, which makes sense. What was her name? You could definitely learn something from their victory poses in the 3D remake. Like what's his name? The night guy. Not gonna lie, when I saw I was just gonna let him have his name. But when I saw his 2D illustration, like with his hair flying backwards, like, okay, Fabio, easy enough. So I got Lyneth is Sigma. Sigma is just kind of my go-to name for when I get to name my character. Arc was Arc. I wanted to name Raffi something, but it was inappropriate. But I probably shouldn't have named it because she had an attitude. So it's I should have named her that because she's got an attitude. But I think she caught. No, I named her Phi. Yeah, Phi, just because like Sigma's a math thing, Phi's a math thing. Why not? And then Fabio. So I had Sigma, Arc, Phi, and Fabio.
That's good.
So did you guys do any custom names for your characters?
Yeah. So again, all the characterization really does only appear in that 3D remake. Like when you get the originals, it's just here's 4 characters, name them whatever the heck you want, and have at. Like, there's really no character development. There's no real character growth.
In the NES, it doesn't even have a name. Who's talking? Just the bubble it's just your party is talking.
Yeah.
Wow,
so, I mean,
that's
in the
very
Pixel
cool.
Remaster, it's just your main character talking. Like, that's it.
Yeah. Well, I'm definitely glad they added a little bit of personality in the 3D remake. Oh, yeah. Even if it's light, it sounds like it's more than what was there. So
it's insanely more considering.
It was literally D&D, imagine it yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, I named all my characters. I actually, because they're different colors. So, like, your character 1 is red, character 2 is blue, green, and, like, purple or something. I don't really remember. But it's like, all right, so I'm going to name the blue one Ice and say that's my main party member. And, like, I swapped their positions. And so even though the red one's the main one, I'm like, nah. Player 2 is in command here of this party.
Yeah. Yeah, in that case, it was definitely more fun. Rafia, I kind of like in the 3D version, if you go back into her hometown, she actually refuses to go with you because her father is still in there. So she's like, I'm just going to sit this out while you guys do your business.
Yep.
Because she doesn't want to go home and see her dad just yet. Yeah. I found the dynamic a little bit more fun. Like,
Yeah.
what was his name? Like the guy that forgot who had amnesia? Like,
Dash.
Lyneth is
Dash.
like a,
Yep.
yeah, it's like a, hey, can he join the party? And everyone looks at her and she's like, why are y'all looking at me?
Yeah. It's there's a lot more nuance in the 3D remake, and
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah,
I
it sounds
think
like
that
a lot
one-
more for sure.
It's
I don't know.
it's I
If
find
you
it a
want
little
the story
interesting
and you want
'cause-
characterization, definitely play that one.
Yeah. I find it a little interesting. Like, her personality doesn't match what the 3D movie had. Like, the 3D movie has her petting, the Chocho, yeah. And but she seems to have a bit of a spice to her in the 3D remake.
Oh, yeah.
Spice, edge. I don't know what the word. She's edgy. She's not mean spirited, but she's kind of like, "What are you doing, dummy?"
She's
Fiery,
abrasive.
fiery. I'm gonna say fiery.
There you go.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's
But
no
annoying
personalization
fiery.
in 3 or in the NES version.
That
Which
was
is what
all introduced in 4 onward, honestly.
Yeah, which I'm fine with in its own way. It's like when I boot up Final Fantasy I to just play through and beat it in a week or whatever, because it's such a short game. It's similar to this. Except this just has, like I said at the very beginning, just more polish.
Yeah.
Not
And I think it's one of those.
all of polish in the world.
Yeah.
Some
I think it could go
polish.
either way because there's 2 ways to make a remake. There's to either one-to-one pixel remake, it's like the same thing but more polish, and then there's more so a spiritual interpretation. I think the 3D remake falls into that, where it's the same story beats, but it's more of a spiritual remake rather than a literal one. And so
Yeah.
I think it just kind of depends on what you want out of a remake.
Yeah.
Because listening to you two describe the Pixel remake and the original NES one, I definitely wouldn't enjoy that. Even if it's only a little bit more personality, I definitely very much enjoy it.
No, it's definitely a plus for it. That's for sure.
Yeah.
But but what do you
I'm
guys
always
think?
happy.
Would you recommend it? Would you recommend it to newcomers? Final Fantasy 3? Yay, nay?
Yeah, it's an easy win for me. Because like I said, this kind of game isn't my beat anyway, so I don't feel like my any negatives I have for it should be bearing, because it's just very personal for me. I don't like turn-based. They're hard for me to get into. That being said, though, I think my praise says a lot. Like, for a turn-based game, I'm very interested in this one in particular, at least. So
Yeah.
I would definitely recommend it. That as someone that doesn't play turn-based games, if you want to play turn-based games to get into it, from my limited experience, this is a very good stepping point. It's got the heart of the original, but it kind of breathes new life into it. Speaking for the 3D remake, it's a little open-ended, but a little closed off. Like, it's very good at guiding you in the right path, because if you go down the wrong path, you'll very quickly know it, and you'll know to go back. It's definitely got some hiccups. I don't like how much it relies on being Mini or Frog, because it feels like it wants you to learn to kind of play with different loadouts, but then it forces you down specific loadouts. I think that could have been handled better, but it wasn't terrible in the end, considering how flexible the jobs can be.
Yep.
I agree.
Yeah, I think I can mirror that sentiment as well. And then there's a lot of good side things to explore and find, and it's not overbearingly long. Like, you can 100% everything there is to see and do in this game in about 20 hours. Like, if I spend 4 more hours, I could have 100% completion on this game. So,
Right.
I don't know. I will stick to it being just a great entry point for people wanting to get into more traditional JRPGs. If they're into it. Again, I have a hard time getting into turn-based ones too, so got to really be in a specific mood for them, and this one just... It kept me engaged without driving me away like other turn-based RPG games, so I really enjoy it. I think it's a good entry and a good starting point once again. So I'll beat that dead horse and say that every time.
All right, Red Mage.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll give my 2 cents with just saying that I think of the NES trilogy of Final Fantasies, this is clearly the most polished and easily the easiest to pick up and play now, even if it still has rough edges to pick up and play with. It's got its hiccups through it. It's got boss fights that are just kind of bad, like the Garuda one with the Dragoon, and just the reliance on, again, forcing you down specific paths, the lack of being able to be extremely creative with your jobs. But you have to give it credit for introducing the job system, especially since they did refine it, I think, personally, two games later with 5. And I think just the fact that it's the starting point of that, it's the starting point of a lot of traditions in the series, also is good to recognize. And if you're going to play really old RPGs, this is a good starting point. Because I say really old, like I said, NES era. If you're going before that, then this is miles ahead of any of those. But but NES era, this is going to be the best one. So you either want to start or end with this one, I think, if you're going to play a bunch of NES era RPGs, because leading this right into some of the other ones is a lot easier. Some of the SNES era ones that are basically games that could have been released today. This one definitely has age, but it still is fun to play, and I definitely enjoyed my playthrough of it this time.
Yep. It's aged better than other games of the time has, that's for sure.
Oh yeah, better than Final Fantasy II.
It's time to throw some shade at age better than Banjo-Kazooie.
Oh, there's not even a corpse left of that horse. It's just a little stain where the grass died.
Oh, man. Anyway, we'll see if anyone's actually watching to the end, because we'll get some hate comments on that one.
I mean, there's archaeologists are just going to come to that rock lair. They're going to see some horse bones, and then where there's like the torso, it's just bent, like with boot marks. Like, what the hell happened to this horse?
Oh man.
Wow.
But I don't really have anything else to cover on this game. It was just really fun to play through a Final Fantasy game again. It's been a couple years for me. Fun seeing the traditional beats of the crystals and Sid and all that good jazz, the job system,
the introduction of Sid.
Its initial point. Like, I really enjoy it. Like, this is one of the things I enjoy about this series is just seeing stuff like this. Like,
it's definitely got a good on a closing note, I like the art style for it. It's got a very unique look to it.
Oh yeah.
Final Fantasy has one of those looks to it that's very ungeneric, and I gotta praise it for that. Like you look at something, a piece of concept art, and it's like, that looks like Final Fantasy, and like that's
absolutely.
Oh
yeah, what is from Final Fantasy.
This game, even in 2D, I think looks really good. Even on the NES, you compare it to other NES games. You compare it to the first Final Fantasy. It's just incredible how far they came in 3 games. I mean, just such a difference, and it looks and plays better, I think, than the first game. Though I'll still always have a certain kind of nostalgia for that first game. It will never go away.
Nostalgia. Yeah, nothing wrong with nostalgia.
3, I mean, again, 3, the best NES game. I think I would take a venture to say it's the best NES RPG. At least that I've played. I'll challenge someone to find me one that I'll enjoy more. I've played the Dragon Quest. I've played the Final Fantasies, played a lot of them. This is, I think, is it. A lot of flaws. Good game.
Yep, sounds good.
All right. Well, thank you both for joining me for this Game of the Month. I believe that our Game of the Month for August is going to be GoldenEye 007 to celebrate its 25th anniversary. So we will see you all back then for another roundtable discussion. Later, everybody.
Later.